Good time of the day to you kind people on the internet. Today I wanted to show you an amazing medium format film camera SLR that shoots square 6x6 exposures and has a waist level viewfinder. You must be thinking it's a Hasselblad, but no, it's not. It's a more affordable Japanese camera with similar capabilities. Have you ever dreamt of shooting Hasselblad 500? This luxurious, legendary mechanical camera. What is it like to use a square composition, 6x6, medium format, large exposures? I did, but the Hasselblad can set you off by over $2,500 today in 2023, according to eBay prices. And I thought, I'm not a professional photographer, that's not a good investment for me, and maybe I don't like square composition, people hate it or love it, I don't know, maybe I don't like it, maybe it's uncomfortable for me. So I did my research to find something more affordable. I found a bunch of medium format cameras, but very few of them are 6x6, are mechanical and SLR cameras. So I discovered this gem, Bronica S2A. Today I wanted to show you that camera, show you sample photographs, of course talk about specification, and I'll try to compare it to Hasselblad 500, though I don't own one, so it will be based on my online research. Bronica S2 is a Japanese camera that was produced from 1965 to 1977. It's pretty old, the company doesn't exist anymore. It's a fully mechanical SLR camera shooting medium square format 6x6. It's a modular camera, the lenses are interchangeable, the backs are interchangeable, and even the viewfinder can be replaced. The backs are mostly 6x6. There are some very rare models of 6x4.5, but it's very hard to find them. On eBay, I saw them only a few times, and they're either in really bad conditions or way too expensive. So I would think about the camera only a square format 6x6. There's a collection of lenses available for this camera from Nikon and from Zenza Bronica themselves. There are 50mm, 75, 150 and 200mm lenses available in the collection. So you're probably thinking, what do I mean by affordable camera? Today, the end of 2023, on eBay, you can find one depending on the condition, from $200 to $500. And it's at least 5 or 6 times cheaper than Hasselblad with the similar capabilities. And it's getting pretty close to Hasselblad. I'll show you what are the differences later in this video. There were 2 models of this camera produced, the original S2 and S2A. The second model was intended to address the problems with the film advance mechanism. It got the better design and it's way more reliable than the original model, so I would definitely recommend looking for a bit more expensive S2A. They can be only distinguished by the serial numbers, and you can find the differences online. The visually and specification, they are identical. The only visual difference is that S2A got smaller film advance dial. Here are some sample photos that I took with this camera. I love this camera. The experience was amazing. It was very reliable. I had only one minor trouble with the second back that I purchased later. It was uneven spacing of the frames, but I think it was my mistake. I was overzealous with the film advance dial. But it happened only once and didn't repeat again, so I'm pretty sure it was my mistake. Otherwise, it's been extremely reliable, very precise shooting. There's something special about using large waist level viewfinder. It's as if you're looking at the thumbnail of your photograph. You know, like in the Lightroom, you can look at the thumbnail and it helps you to spot the problems with the composition, if something is wrong or is it really good. It's kind of like that. I think it provides a very good overview of how the photograph will look like. If you've never tried shooting with a waist level large viewfinder before, I definitely recommend that experience, at least to try it. The square composition, it's interesting. Many people hate it. I think I love it. It's definitely very different from normal 2x3. The composition has to be different. There are different rules. Putting things just on the third on the line, it doesn't work that well. So you need to be creative, looking for symmetry and putting things in the center. And it's definitely a challenge, but I like this challenge. I think it improves my composition skills, and certainly can recommend it if you've never tried it. But you can expect some challenges with getting a good square photograph if you've never tried the format. Now let's get into the woods with Specification. So first of all, the camera is heavy, 2 kilograms. It's 4.4 pounds. Hasselblad is twice less than that, so it's pretty heavy. It's not terrible. There are heavier cameras like Mamiya 6x7 Beast, so it's kind of not that bad. So looking at the shutter dial, the shutter speeds are available from 1 second to 1,000 of a second. There's a bulb mode, of course, and there's X mode, which is a flash synchronization at 1/40th of a second. So it's pretty slow. The flash can be connected here. In 2023, I wouldn't consider this camera for flash photography. Looking at the other side, there's a film advance and caulking mechanism. Let me show you how it works. For that, I need to detach the film back because there's no film in it, and without film, it will not caulk the mechanism. It will caulk it without the back. So the sound of caulking the mechanism, and it's pretty loud. Some people get scared that they broke something. It definitely feels like the first time as if you broke something, but it's not. You get used to it. And here's the shutter release. It's very, very loud. It's a big curtain, the big mirror. It's not a stealthy street photography camera for sure. So looking at the front of the camera, there's a depth of field preview button and shutter release button with the locking. So you can turn it and lock it so that if you're trying to press it, it doesn't press, so that you don't accidentally release the shutter. The button is pretty stiff, so I'm usually not worried about pressing it accidentally. The camera also will not shoot if the dark slide is in, so you're protected against making a mistake of shooting and not exposing your film. And usually when I pack it in the backpack, the dark light is in, I'm not worried of releasing the shutter. It has pretty good safety features. In the bottom, there is a shutter release cable connection interface. Cable can also be connected in the shutter release button itself, so there are two options. Sometimes it's more convenient to connect it in the bottom so that it doesn't stick out. Apart from that, on the bottom, there's nothing interesting. This is just my Manfrotto plate connected here. There's nothing else on the bottom. On the top, there's a viewfinder that is detachable. It's very convenient when you want to clean the viewfinder or you want to replace the focusing screens. I did replace mine. I got the second one with the split prism. The original version was just a transparent screen, so the focusing wasn't that easy. With the split prism, it's very easy to focus precisely. It's a must-have feature for this kind of medium format cameras because the depth of field can be super thin. Sometimes it can be challenging to get everything in the focus. Looking at the film bag, there's a switch between 120 and 220 film, so between 12 and 24 exposures. 2020 film is basically unavailable in 2023, so I don't use that. The film bag is open here on the top. There's a place to put a memo about the film you have inside of it, just to make sure that you know what you have and you know that the bag has film or not. It opens like that. And here's the place to load the film. Now let's look at the lenses. So the lens mechanism is actually quite interesting in that camera. So it consists of two parts, the lens itself and the focusing helicoid. They are separate from each other, so they can be disconnected separately. So meaning that you can replace lens without changing the focusing ring. In order to disconnect the lens, you need to rotate the focusing to the maximum, and then there's a lever here that I press, and then I can rotate the lens counterclockwise, and the lens is disconnected. So that's the lens. The lens contains only the aperture ring. It doesn't have the focusing ring. And the helicoid can be disconnected separately. There's a special button here to disconnect the helicoid. So let's put this lens back. There are red dot markers to make it easier for you to put the lens back in the right spot. So the stock lens is 75mm 2.8. I got the Nikon model. It's a Nikkor lens. There's also Bronica, but the online reviews favor Nikon more. It's an equivalent of 41mm in a full frame and 35mm frames, and it's uncommon for length, but I found it actually very comfortable for myself. I thought it would be pretty tight, but I enjoy it a lot, and I find compositions with it all the time. I actually favor that lens over other two lenses that I have, and I found it for myself for the square format, for the medium format size. It's actually very comfortable length. I have two others. So I have a wide lens, which is Nikon Nikkor lens 50mm f3.5, pretty wide. It's an equivalent of 28mm. And I have a longer lens, which is Bronica model, 150mm f3.5. This is the equivalent of 83mm in a full frame. So, how does it stand against Hasselblad? Let me share my thoughts on it. Again, I don't own Hasselblad, I didn't try it, so it's purely based on my online research and based on specification. So, the obvious difference is twice heavier than Hasselblad, 2 kilos, 4.4 pounds. A bit heavy, I agree, but I managed to take it on a trip to Maui on Hawaii. Check out the video that I have on my channel with a photo shoot with this camera, with the samples of the photos as well. So you can travel with it. It's just hard to take more cameras with it, of course, so you have to make some trade-offs. In my opinion, one of the biggest things that I miss about it, that I would love to have, that Hasselblad does have, is a mirror lockup. So if you're shooting long shutter speeds, the mirror is very large in these medium format cameras, and the mirror has to move away to let the light in to expose the photograph. So when you release the shutter, the mirror has to move. And with such a big mirror, it can introduce a shake in the camera. And if you have a long shutter speed, you can get blur. Bronica doesn't have mirror lockup, so unfortunately you have to be aware of that. And I tend to, when I'm shooting from a tripod with a long shutter speed, I tend to hold it and try to avoid the shake. I didn't have a lot of problems with it, but it's something that you need to keep in mind if it's important for you. The other big difference is that Hasselblads have lift shutter built into lenses, so that the flash synchronization can be done basically at any shutter speed and very high shutter speed. So for studio flash photography, Hasselblad is amazing. It's famous for that. And as I said before, I wouldn't consider Bronica for flash photography. It's very limited Of course, Hasselblad is famous for their collection of lenses, a lot of options, beautiful vintage lenses, sharp, great character, lots of options. However, they are very, very expensive, and you will be limited not by the variety of lenses, but the amount of money you can spend on them. So realistically, even though there are lots of options, but you're probably not gonna buy many of them. Now, as a conclusion, do I regret getting this camera? Not at all. Easily my favorite camera today. I enjoy shooting it more than any digital or 35mm film cameras. I enjoy more than shooting Nikon F3, which is perfect camera, works very smooth, very easy to shoot, has all the capabilities I need. But there's something special about shooting medium format, large waist level viewfinder. When you look at that large bright picture, it looks like a thumbnail, it's inspiring. There's something special about it for sure. Sometimes it's hard because the image is mirrored. So there's only one mirror in this camera. So when the light goes in, it gets mirrored. So you see the picture that's mirrored, not the same as the reality. So sometimes it's challenging to imagine in your head how will it look like when it's mirrored back. But you can always have an option to just keep it mirrored as a final result if the composition doesn't look the same. Great camera. I don't regret at all. I would go for it again. I was even thinking about upgrading to Hasselblad maybe, because I enjoy the format and the process so much. But again, I cannot find the real reason to upgrade, because it's a lot of money and I get like 90% of it, or even 95% of it. I don't need flash photography. Maybe the mirror lockup would be nice and I would shoot longer exposures more often, maybe more relaxed. The main disadvantage, of course, is weight. I found it to be not such a big problem. I managed to travel it, as I said before, went on a flight, so you can carry it in the luggage and carry on. You would think that it's mostly shootable on the tripod, but I found myself shooting it mostly handheld, actually. I think this camera is a great introduction into medium format, square composition, 6x6, waist level viewfinder. If you've never tried it, I wouldn't go for Hasselblad unless you have unlimited amount of money. There are other options, of course, if you want to get introduced into medium format and square composition. There are TLR cameras, twin lens reflex, the ones with the two lenses, so you're focusing and composing through one lens, and then the actual exposure is done through the second lens. It's not the same as single lens reflex. When you're looking through the lens, you get the perfect impression of the picture and the perfect composition. With the TLR, it can be challenging to focus close up because there's a distortion of the composition because you're looking through a different perspective. But they are lighter and kind of simpler cameras. There's no mirror that moves up and down, so it's an interesting alternative, I would say. Some of them are even cheaper than Bronica. So here it is. That's my beast of a camera, Bronica S2A. Thanks for watching up until this point. Check out my Instagram for more samples of the photos done with this camera, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.